Okay, well, everyone, welcome. So today is a webinar introducing the Use Cit Sci network. And I'm really glad that you all showed up because we are looking to put together a community of practitioners that can work together to bring citizen science into higher education more. And so what we're going to be talking about today is kind of what the Use Cit Sci network is. We're going to be introducing three of us who are already part of the network, talking super briefly about the ways that you can incorporate citizen science into your classrooms if you're interested in that. And especially if you have never used citizen science before in your classrooms, just to kind of give you a taste of what can be done. And then just a little bit more logistics about how to join the network, where we're looking to go with the network, and just talk with you all about anything you wanted to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with an introduction. So hi, I'm Bucky Gates. You see my name is Terry here. I'm in the Department of Biological Sciences at North Carolina State University. I came into citizen science as part of a postdoc that I got back in 2013. And from there, I began creating my very own citizen science project with fossil shark teeth. And I didn't really recognize the use of citizen science within public education, even though that was exactly what I was supposed to be doing with my project. And I didn't really recognize it until I started working with teachers. And the more I got teachers helping me to understand education, the more that I got to see how useful citizen science can be. And actually, I've just been writing a paper recently about all the great ways that you can incorporate citizen science into classrooms using the self-determination theory. And it's really cool how the two can mesh. So I'm all in for it now. And I've been doing it in the higher education classroom since 2015. And I really hope that we can get a lot of people together to help improve my instruction for sure, because there's so many different ways to do it and so much creativity out there. So next, I'm going to introduce Thomas.
Hello. I'm at the end of a long and varied career. I'm a environmental chemist, and right now I'm teaching part-time at a very good community college in Muskegon, Michigan. And I've set about trying to find ways to get our first two-year college students into research and independent study by linking to citizen science activities. And I'll, given a chance, expand on this a little bit later.
Great. And I am just your MC for the day. The leader of the network is Heather. So I'll turn it over to her and she'll continue on with an introduction.
Great, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to just share a few slides with you here. I'm Heather Vance Childcraft, and I am in the Department of Biology at East Carolina University, which is in Greenville, North Carolina. And I became familiar with citizen science a while ago from an outreach perspective, but it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago, that 5 to 7 years ago, that I started working with the Caterpillars Count project with Bucky and with Alan Hurlbert, who is the creator of the Caterpillars Count project. And we were interested in having students collect data for the Caterpillars Count project from across the state of North Carolina, so that we would have ecological data kind of covering the gradient of habitats across the state. But my interests over time had been changing from ecological interests to biology education interests. And so at the same time, I said, well, if we're going to have students from across the state working on this same project, we should really try to assess whether or not they are gaining any learning outcomes from this experience. And so we started creating a way to do that with this one single project across the state of North Carolina. And through those discussions, we started looking at this kind of more comprehensively to say, well, what does the literature say about the use of citizen science in a higher ed environment? And we discovered that there were some fairly gaping holes in this area. And so we put together a proposal to create a research coordination network, which is a type of project that can be funded through the National Science Foundation. And the research coordination networks are really designed to get people together, get people talking and creating collaborations to further some sort of field. And so we got an initial grant in order to start getting people together to think about this topic and to begin to plan what would a network need to do and what would a network goals be for this sort of project. And so Alan, Perry, and I went together and got this first proposal funded. And that was used to pull together a steering committee and a variety of people to help us really flesh out the idea of what would a network of this sort be. And so we spent a lot of time that first year.
Hey, Heather, hate to interrupt, but we only see your home screen.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. Oh, whoops. There we go. And so I will.
Still can only see your home screen.
Oh, like that, my ECU background screen?
Yeah, that one.
Oh. Ah, okay, hang on. I thought you just meant my first slide. Huh, okay. I don't know.
We'll edit this out, don't worry.
Okay, sorry. I don't know why that's happening. Here we go.
There we go.
All right. Okay, sweet. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. So at any rate, we got this initial funding to put together this network. And we spent a lot of time at the beginning saying, what should this network do? What should it be? And we eventually, with this great steering committee, who you see pictured here, and I'll show you more about in a minute. This is some of the steering committee, not everybody. We eventually established what we called the Undergraduate Student Experiences with Citizen Science Network, or the USE Cit Sci Network. And what we decided would be the best purpose for a network like this was to create a diverse community of practice of people interested in using existing citizen science projects with undergraduate students, to engage the students in authentic science practices, to improve student and instructor learning outcomes, and to broaden participation in science. And so after this initial creation phase where we were working with a fairly limited steering committee, we now have received, or at least are 99% likely of receiving funding for the next 5 years. We've been recommended for funding, so we're working through the final bureaucratic stages now to fund 5 more years of this network. And so now we're looking to add people to the network and start to move forward with a variety of goals. So why might a network be needed for this sort of topic? Well, we really felt like to move the field forward, we needed to have a much greater degree of dialogue and coordination between citizen science project staff and instructors who may want to use those projects in order to create some of these recommended practices for how citizen science can be used in higher education. All right, so why might people want to use citizen science in higher education? Well, we see through some of the efforts of our original incubator network, we did a literature search to see how commonly are people using citizen science in higher ed. And then we also surveyed instructors from across different disciplines, across many listservs, to see how commonly are instructors using citizen science in classes in higher ed. And we saw that it's being used much more commonly than you would predict from the literature. And the reasons why instructors said they wanted to use citizen science were things like it was a good way to link classroom content to community engagement. it can improve motivation and academic achievement. And that this was especially beneficial for groups that have been traditionally underrepresented in science. We also heard a lot of reports that citizen science was being used in really diverse course formats, in different disciplines, and at many different types of institutions. And then what became increasingly appealing over the last year and a half was the idea that citizen science can be used with diverse instructional approaches. So online settings, for example, hybrid settings, face-to-face settings. And so it was a really flexible technique, or a really flexible tool to use in times of teaching disruption, such as during the pandemic. So in general, for the next 5 years or so, our goals for the network are primarily to create this broad community of practice that includes instructors, citizen science staff, and educational researchers, in order to facilitate the adoption of citizen science in higher education. And we'll do this by things like disseminating useful resources that people can use, so people aren't having to create resources from scratch if they don't want to. We're creating a peer mentoring system where we have instructors that are already using citizen science in classes, mentoring instructors who want to use citizen science in classes but haven't yet. We are creating various professional development supports as well, things like webinars and office hours and other sorts of strategies. We also will be identifying resources that are already available. We don't want to recreate the wheel. If there are resources that are out there, we want to be able to direct people to them. So we're trying to create a clearinghouse of different resources that are already out there, so that we can create resources to fill the gaps, not repeat what's already been done. And we're going to be developing recommendations for how to implement and assess citizen science in higher ed. What are best practices? What is known? What is supported by evidence and literature? And then we also want to assist citizen science project staff to attract instructors to their projects. So there are some citizen science projects that work really well in higher ed classrooms, and these projects may be interested in attracting instructors to use them and finding out who is using them and increasing the dialogue there. And so we want to be able to help attract instructors to various projects and reduce the barriers of use for those projects by developing recommendations for what can projects do to make it easier for instructors to use their projects with students. And we also are going to be providing some support for resource development so that project staff can work with educational staff to create resources for their projects that any instructor could use. And so that is an overview of where we are going with the network. So I will pass it back to Bucky for a second to go to a different topic.
There we are. All right. So we have just a few people today who are here attending. So I think I'm going to completely deviate from what we've normally done and just have you all, if you would like to introduce yourselves, so we can make this a lot more personal. And if you're okay with that, then yeah, I guess just if you don't want to introduce yourself, say, I don't want to introduce myself. I want to stay anonymous. All right, so we'll, I'm just going to start with my screen here. We'll start with Nancy.
I get a vote from some dog in our community. Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Sheehan. I coordinate a citizen science program called Journey North. It's a program that engages people from across North America in tracking migratory species. Our two biggest projects are monarch and milkweed, and the 6 species of hummingbirds that migrate. The program is it's a program of the University of Wisconsin-Madison Arboretum. So I am calling from Madison, Wisconsin. And is there something else that you wanted me to say? I'm sorry. I have been working in this field of citizen science for many years now, from setting up programs for high school students to working with watershed communities and assessing water quality of streams, to now working in the field of migratory species, and very much have a foot in both education outreach and also the collection of actionable data. So I'm very interested in, especially one of the things you just mentioned, Heather, in connecting staff to other educators and creating materials for better accessing real life data for students to work with in high school and college settings. Nice to meet you all.
That sounds great. Thanks, Nancy. Okay, Dan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Stanton. I am a research and engagement librarian at Arizona State University. And I have been working with citizen science for about 5 years now. Darlene Cavalier is as you all probably know, founder of SciStarter, is a professor of practice at Arizona State University. And so my experience begins with her, and we have worked together to work with public libraries as a place to facilitate citizen science in communities. And so that's been going on for the past few years. My interest shifted when I went to the CSA conference in Raleigh a couple of years ago, and it just blew me away kind of how much there is out there in citizen science. And so I have had a sabbatical with Dr. Karen Cooper at NC State, fortunately before the pandemic, a couple of falls ago. And my hope is to bring citizen science to the campus of Arizona State University. Citizen science goes on, but there's no real kind of group behind it. And so we've got a proposal in for the ASU library to have a citizen science center that would work with Arizona State University, with faculty and researchers in the teaching and research aspects of citizen science, and then also to work with academic libraries and academic librarians, because I found that there's a lot of interest, but some of the folks seem to be kind of outliers and not sure how to help others get going or to get going themselves. And so when I saw this, I thought it was just a great opportunity to introduce and spread citizen science through the academy. And so that's my story. Thank you. Oh,
Great.
and I do want to say, last year I had the opportunity to work with both Bucky and Heather on a CSA series of webinars about higher education, and that really blew me away and kind of put me in the focus for the possibilities. And so the proposal we've got in really draws on everything that went on there. And I'm also working with folks at the European Citizen Science Association. I'm on their working group for citizen science in universities as well. They've got a very kind of a different approach there, kind of top down. Okay, now I'll be quiet.
Okay, all right, great. Thanks, Dan. Clearly you have a lot you can offer everyone here. All right, Maria, you and your cat.
Hi, thank you. I'm Maria, and this is Albert. He's decided he's going to wake up from a nap today. I'm coming to you from Saskatchewan, Canada. So I teach at the University of Regina. I'm teaching faculty here, and I'm interested in giving my students more of especially introductory genetics or introductory level courses, introducing citizen science into the introductory levels. So I'm newbie, I don't know anything about citizen science. I'm interested and I want to, I'm really interested in giving my students a different outlook and so that they can be better citizens, I suppose, and put science in the forefront in their decision making.
Excellent. I don't know a lot about Saskatchewan except the song "The Last Saskatchewan Pirate." I'm not sure if you're familiar. No? Classic Canadian song. Gotta look it up.
I will. I'm new to Saskatchewan myself. I'm actually from the east coast of Canada. So I've just recently moved here a couple of years ago.
Okay. Well, I hope you survive the winters. All right, Christina.
Hey everybody, my name is Christina Andruk. I am an assistant professor of biology at Iona College, which is just north of New York City. And so I have been using citizen science in my course over the past couple of years. I've been using iNaturalist in environmental science, and I also did some phenology projects with my students in botany. Right, I definitely found that citizen science was a great way to get people outside and doing labs over the last year when we've been doing everything remotely. So I was still able to use it in both of my classes, last spring when everything hit, and again over this past year. So people could be all over and all, working to document biodiversity in their backyards. So I found like it really worked very well for, the entry level course where I have a lot of non-majors, and then the goal was just like, get outside and learn a little bit about what's around you. But I'd like to, meet more people that are using it and get some more ideas.
Fabulous. Nice to meet you, Christina. All right, so Julie posted in the chat that she's having connection issues, but she is a pre-service teacher at the AMNH, which is super, super cool. I love the AMNH and I love getting to pre-service teachers as well. It's become one of my new things, trying to get to teachers before they get in the classroom. All right, and finally, Anna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Anna Ward. I'm actually an incoming PhD student working in Heather's lab in the fall. And I'm here mostly today just to learn a little bit more about the project and kind of what's going on. I use iNaturalist like on my day-to-day, so I'm curious to see just what I can learn from everyone.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you all. Well, it's nice to see that we have both a librarian, person who is central to a university who can help with getting resources out and housing resource individual universities. We have a project manager here, Nancy, someone whose project can be used by your course, as well as people who have used it in the past, and someone who has never used it before. And so it's really awesome to see the whole breadth of what we're hoping to develop in this community all in one place right now. So what I want to do is have Thomas tell you one of the ways that he has used citizen science in class. And I'm going to just super briefly tell you something, but mostly what I wanted to spend the rest of the time doing is having Heather help you know how to join the network. Thomas?
Yeah, can I share my screen, Bucky?
Yes, you can.
And where's the share screen button?
Should be on the bottom.
Green with an arrow.
Oh, what the hell? Sorry. I'm driving myself nuts here. So,
I'll tell him one more thing, Thomas. You just keep exploring your screen. All right, folks. So we have one other person that wanted me to share something today. And so I'm going to post in the chat a link to a YouTube video. Watch it at, whenever you'd like to. This is a video made by undergraduates of Gillian Bowser. She is also a member of our steering committee. Her research is focused on biodiversity, especially of pollinators up in the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone National Parks. And so what they do is they have undergraduates collect data in the summer on the biodiversity of these pollinators, and then submit their data to iNaturalist. And this video, I gotta warn you, has a lot of Blair Witch Project, Cloverfield type first person camera action going on. I had to not look at it for a little bit, but it's a cute little video, and it just kind of displays some of the ways that you can get the undergraduates involved in a very personal project and have citizen science be a tangent of the project, but still be a portion of the project and doing research. So how you doing, Thomas?
I'm ready to go. Either before or after your video, no problem.
Oh, I'm not showing the video. They can watch it on their own time.
Okay. Well, let me see it. Is that working?
No.
Does that work?
Now you got it.
Okay, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here because this is a simple idea. And I'm trying, with what I'm doing at the community college, I'm trying to address three needs. One is especially to address the needs of STEM students who are looking for research opportunities. And the kids that come to our community college, while they're not necessarily from underrepresented communities, do have one thing in common, and that is, quite to my surprise, they're first generation college students. And so they are looking for a leg up in the whole process because they feel like they're starting in a hole, in part because of their backgrounds and in part because they're totally lacking in a acculturation to the scientific community. And one way I've found to address their needs is by linking them up with citizen science groups that have some kind of education and outreach goals, which most of them do. And then I've explored the role of the college administration in wanting to offer undergraduate research. I don't want to go into a lot of detail here, but as you might imagine, if you go to an administrator, a manager at a community college and say, I would like to involve our students, STEM students in undergraduate research and independent study, do you support that? Oh, yes, they definitely support it for sure. But as you might imagine, that's also not the end of the conversation. So I'm not going to deal with that aspect right now. I'm sure that those of you who are, well, you're all academics, so you know what the problems could be. We're very resource limited and a very busy bunch of people on the faculty there. And so this is a sell to the administration. They like the idea of it, but when it gets around to release time for doing it and supporting it with logistics and some money, it's not so easy necessarily. But what I've done is found some local environmental organizations. They're watershed monitoring groups. And I did that because that's my field. I'm, a water guy. And these places have active environmental monitoring programs in the field, ongoing for many years, and with the active support of the state of Michigan. The idea here was to put students into these local monitoring programs with mentoring by the people in the volunteer programs, and then to use faculty to help provide the necessary skills and background and to assure academic integrity, because I've wanted from the beginning for students to do this for credit. And that's actually an important selling point when dealing with the students. So the idea is the colleges offer independent study courses. They make access to their facilities, information resources, equipment, etc., available not only to the students, but also to the volunteer organizations. So leaping ahead, how has this worked out? Well, here's an example. One of the organizations provided support for a summer internship, which is basically tuition and expenses, so that the students didn't have any out-of-pocket expenses associated with participating in the program. Occasionally, a small grant will come along from the state or somewhere else that can help to with costs as well and provide some support for faculty. So this particular student helped to assess road stream crossings and their impact on stream health. He wrote and defended a fairly extensive research report, got a couple of credits, and managed to get accepted into the engineering program at Michigan State University, where he's doing well. And in addition, we were able to utilize the results of his studies in supporting a large federal funding request, which we heard recently we got. So we'll be out working to improve some of the underperforming road stream crossings that are impacting stream quality in our area. So that's it in a nutshell. We've had a handful of students over the last few years. One of the things that's peculiar, or at least maybe odd about our situation, is that we have small classes. When they built this college, they built it with labs that only hold a couple of dozen people. And so, you know, a typical science section never has more than a couple of dozen people in it, and it's a lot easier to meet and get to know the students in these small classes. And of course, they have to be interested in the research that the faculty is talking about, and they have to trust the faculty, you know, that the kind of guidance that we provide is going to be useful to them in the long run. Yeah. Well, I'm going to stop there, Bucky, unless I hope there's some specific questions, but if not, I'm done.
I will have time for questions at the end if anyone wants to ask then. All right, so this I think is a really good example of how you can end up using not only students, but outside groups, people from outside the university to make your citizen science happen, especially if you're at a place that doesn't have a lot of resources. Okay. Let's see, we'll do this, and we'll do that. There are lots of ways in which we can use citizen science in the classroom. Lots and lots of ways, from kind of the more complex way that Thomas uses it to very simple one-off assignments. And I'm sure Christina can give us lots of great examples of how she used. So instead of me continuing on telling you different ways that we can use it, I want to reference you guys to our July 14th webinar for practitioners. And if you want some very specific advice on how to use citizen science in the classroom, attend that day, July 14th. And we can answer questions. I'm probably going to have breakout rooms for different topics. And so we can talk more specifically then. Also, I'm going to plug my email address inside the chat. Feel free to email me at any time if you have specific questions that you would like. Did I email to, I did not send out all this stuff. I've been sending it to Heather in a private chat. Oops, hold on a second.
Sorry, I just noticed that too.
Okay, that's my email address. And that's the YouTube video that I've been promising. Okay, there we go. So yeah, feel free to email me with any kind of questions whatsoever about anything. There's nothing too small or too big about citizen science in the classroom for me. And so now I'm just going to turn it right back over to Heather here, and she can tell you guys how to sign up if you'd like to.
Whoops, I was muted. You said you weren't seeing anything. Okay, are you guys seeing the web page now? All right, thank you.
Like it's amateur hour.
I know, you would think we've never done this. Sorry, not at our best. So here is our existing website associated with the network. One of our top goals, as you'll see in a moment, is to improve our digital infrastructure now that we're moving forward for the next 5 years. But this is a functional starting point for us. And we will put this website link in the chat, and we also have a QR code that I'll show you here in a minute to get to it if you are interested. And so here it just shows you a little bit about the network. And at the top here, you can learn more about us. So here is Alan, the third PI who's not able to be here today. And here is our wonderful steering committee. And you can learn more about each of them as well, including Thomas. Our goals and objectives, kind of as I've outlined them today, and some of our initial ones that we've now met and we're moving into our next phase. There is a resources link, which links to some existing resources. This is by no means comprehensive yet. We are building this. And so one of the things you can see right here, if you click on this Citizen Science Association video, this is one of those videos that Dan referenced earlier that we did last year. And here is another one of them. So there are different ones of those videos that we made last year that are on here that you are welcome to access through YouTube, through this link. If you are interested in joining the network, we have roles for people who are instructors, people who are citizen science staff, project staff, people who are evaluators, and people who are educational researchers. We would love to have you involved. You can do that here through Join the Network. It takes like a minute and a half. It's very quick. And so you just fill in a little bit of information here and hit submit. If you have resources that you would like for us to feature, like Dan did the other day, thank you, Dan. I haven't added it yet, but we will. There is an upload a resource. And so you can add information here. So if you are a Citizen Science Project staff member and you have information you want to add about your project, you can do that through here. If you're an instructor who has a lesson plan you're willing to share with others or something that uses citizen science, you're welcome to list that here. And we can make that available. And then there is a contact button. Okay, so here is the website. We have a simpler one, but we're having a technical problem with it at the moment. This is the full one, or here is the QR code if you want to do a screen capture, and we can email this information out as well. And
it's also inside the blog or the chat.
Yeah. So here are the future plans, and you're now seeing the slides, not the website, right? Yes. Bucky, are you seeing the future plan slide?
Yeah, I got it.
Great. Okay. Just after all our technical problems, I just didn't want to take anything for granted here. Here are our tasks as we've outlined them for the next 5 years. The first one is to build the network. We basically selected people with specific characteristics to start the steering committee, and now we want to start expanding to be much more inclusive. So we're recruiting network members. That's part of what today's efforts are. We will be improving the digital infrastructure, so that website will be greatly improved or perhaps change platforms altogether. We are finding ways to encourage network interaction. Our second network goal is to develop resources or point people to existing resources, as well as creating these recommendations. So people who are interested in educational research may be interested in our efforts to map educational theoretical frameworks to see what are some of the educational frameworks that underlie the use of citizen science in class, and why that might be an effective strategy to do. We are creating a database of assessment resources that instructors or others may want to access. We're developing these instructor recommendations through dialogue with higher ed instructors as well as citizen science project staff. And we are also creating multi-institutional research collaborations. So we will be recruiting people at different institutions who want to work together to on some topic. And we have a variety of different subgroups that we will be forming looking at specific topics. And then we also have subgroups that we are leaving open to topics so that people, as they come in and have their own interests, we can support. We have a third goal of introducing citizen science to instructors who are not already using them. So disseminating materials to attract new instructors to citizen science, the peer mentoring system I mentioned earlier, and professional development, and then helping the citizen science projects to help educators use their projects. We'll be facilitating interactions, developing recommendations, and developing resources to reduce barriers for instructors to use these citizen science projects. And so kind of our structure for the network is we have the steering committee who has been involved from early on and will hopefully be relatively stable through time. But we will also have an advisory board. We will be creating the advisory board this fall, and the advisory board membership will rotate over time, in part to provide more avenue for new voices. And then as the emphasis changes over time, as we've met certain goals and move towards others, we may need to bulk up certain expertise on the board at different stages. And we learned through the incubator phase of our project that you can get much more accomplished in subgroups sometimes than through large groups. And so we have structured this to support a number of subgroups based on different interests. So for example, we will have subgroups on the use of citizen science in online environments. We have subgroups devoted to how to integrate social justice issues with the use of citizen science in higher ed, and a variety of other subgroups. And then some of these subgroups, again, we don't have set topics for them to pursue because we want people to be able to pursue things of shared common interest that maybe we haven't thought of. And then we have contributing members. Those are people who access the website, maybe come to some network meetings. And then participants, people who we may not even really interact with much, but access things on our website and such. And so there's a variety of different ways for people to be involved. And so you may have a particular passion for one subtopic of what we've been talking about. And so maybe you would become a subgroup leader or a subgroup member related to that topic and are really active for a couple of years and then take more of a backseat in other years. Or maybe you're really active every year. However you want to do it, is great with us. The grant does have some money to support stipends to further these goals. And so people who are working in subgroups or on the advisory board will receive stipends for their participation. The mentors, the peer mentors will receive stipends as well as those who are being mentored. Citizen science projects who have an interest in having resources created, we have money available to help support the collaboration of an educator with the citizen science project staff to create those resources. So we have some resources available, modest, not huge amounts, but modest amounts to help these various efforts over time. And so what are some of these subgroups? As I said, two of the first emphases for this next year are the use of citizen science in online environments and social justice. And we have a couple others identified for each year for the next couple of years after that. But every year we have some money set aside for these emergent ideas that people are passionate about and want to pursue with a subgroup of people. And so we're happy to support that as well. So the meeting structure, this looks really complicated, but essentially we're not looking to overdo it with meetings. Different groups will meet together at different times. So the PIs and steering committee will meet a couple times a year, but then we'll have everybody will be invited meeting virtual once a year. And some of these meetings will be virtual. In-person meetings, because of the expense associated with them, we can't support everybody to go to everything, but we have room for subgroups to get together and a couple times a year in person, and we can finance that travel and lodging and things like that. And so there's a variety of different ways that one can participate virtually or in person to an extent where you're contributing regularly and you're actually publishing as part of the network, or somebody who just wants to access resources and kind of stay informed. Any of those are fine ways to participate. So we would love to have you involved if you're in any of these roles or any other role where you think that this would be relevant and helpful to you. We'd love to have you involved. All right, so I will throw it back to Bucky for some last minute thoughts before we throw it open for conversation and questions.
Well, I don't really have any final thoughts. I think everything that you covered is pretty much there. I think what now we can do is just open up for any kind of questions that you guys have. And I mean, since we have such a small group too, if there's anything you wanted to discuss, you can throw that out as well.
I'll jump in, and unfortunately I'm going to have to pop off. I'm sandwich meetings today, but I appreciate the rundown here and getting updates since last we spoke, and very excited about the network. And I'm already on there. I think I did it correctly from last year, and particularly I'm interested in how projects managers and staff can work together to provide the materials that are really useful for educators to use. And so, Journey North, speaking from my experience, is kind of at a crossroads at this point in time where we have a lot of material more geared towards the younger set. And so we're really looking to partner more immediately with a group like FieldScope to create data visualizations and the kind of curricula that could support educators in just grappling with data in real time. So I'm very interested in kind of following through on that particular topic. And then I had a side chat with Dan because UW is part of a huge system, and the librarians are terrific, and I've had already some collaborative exercises with the librarians here. So that's something very interesting to me to follow up with. So how to connect, I think that's really, as you know, it's hard to collaborate when we're all kind of 100% doing other things. So really looking forward to the network and facilitating that collaboration. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And anyone who's on the network should have received, if you joined a while ago, hopefully you received a newsletter recently from the network. So if you thought you had joined a while ago and you didn't receive that recently, then let me know, but you should have. And so we'll be sending regular updates, and part of those newsletters will be like, hey, we're recruiting especially for this topic right now, or hey, there's a network-wide meeting coming up, and here's the links, those sorts of things. So be on the lookout through that. And then of course, you're always welcome to contact us anytime if you have ideas that you want to pursue, or you have any questions or comments or thoughts, or we're happy to be. We want to be kind of a bottom-up network, not a top-down network. We want to be what people want to be, and we want to provide resources to help people accomplish what it is that they want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm curious, Maria, what is it that you research/teach?
I teach labs in genetics, intro as well as advanced. molecular genetics and also plant physiology. And I recently started an at-home lab, which is what is getting me interested in citizen science. Is they source their own soil to try and nodulate pea plants. And so then they send the nodules, if any, to the lab, and then I try to incorporate it into independent research projects with undergraduate students. So I am very interested in getting students to publish as undergrads as well. And so that's what I'm looking at. And if I could get it somehow incorporated into my microbial genetics course, where the nodules that they collect can go into that, feed into that course. That's what I'm looking at. So I've had really great success getting small pots of money from the dean to support these activities. So if I can expand that further and get more students involved and also Canadian researchers, I would be very happy to incorporate that. Thank you for that, Nancy. I also have seen the tiny earth, and I will, my focus is more genetics rather than the microbiology, but I'll try to get the microbiologists also involved. I'm originally trained as a microbiologist, so I will try to also focus in on getting other people in there. So I thought I would see how I could contribute. And I guess my question would be, since I'm Canadian, I don't know if that changes if I can be part of a leader in the subgroup or not, and where I could join.
Yeah, it would. So you're certainly welcome to participate in any of these roles. It does change slightly how we can pay how we could compensate you and for what we could compensate you, but you are certainly we can fund travel internationally in some situations. Stipends gets a little bit more difficult. We may be able to find some solution there, but yeah, we certainly welcome our Canadian.
I'm mostly interested in getting students' experiences, and so if I can get money to pay students, that would be where I would be interested in, just because I think students need to get more experience, and also they're underpaid and they're working tons of jobs. And so if I want to get them in science, then at least paying them to do some science would be nice.
Yeah, I think this could be a really cool collaboration for you, because we have people here who have created citizen science projects, Nancy and I, as well as those that have incorporated them. NC State has a huge plant and microbiology department. So it could be some good stuff happening in the future.
I was just going to say, make a pitch for Arizona State University. As far as I know, is hosting the Citizen Science Association conference in May of 2022. I don't know if there are plans to incorporate that as one of those in-person things. You may be able to double up and catch people who'd be coming to that anyhow. But just FYI, at the end of May, we're going to have dorm housing to help with keep costs down and things like that. So just FYI.
Yeah, and that actually is. So every other year, assuming the CSA sticks to an every other year in-person meeting, every other year, our in-person meetings for the network will be at that conference. On the alternating years, they are often in association with something like the Ecological Society of America meetings or things like that, where a lot of people tend to go. Yeah, so we will definitely be there. I will also say, if any of you registered for the CSA's virtual event that happened this past May, all of those resources are still available to you. And there was an undergraduate education section of posters, several of which reflect things related to the network, and several of that might be of interest to various ones of you for different things. And so I encourage you, if you did register, you're welcome to check those out as well. Well, thank you guys so much. I can stick around. I suspect Becky can as well for a couple minutes if anybody wants to chat further, but I know everybody has other things they're getting to. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time and for thinking about how the network may work for you, and let us know if you have any questions or comments.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just signed up, so I'm interested in getting involved and learning more and maybe joining some kind of committee. So Iona is a small undergraduate institution. So yeah, I'm the only ecologist, so I need to, network out with other people doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we that's one thing we've really tried with the steering committee from the beginning, and as we grow, to have representation from 2-year and 4-year institutions, small, large, private, everything in between, highly selective, less selective, so that because that's one of the beauties of citizen science in my mind, is that it works for such different sorts of populations and in all sorts of different types of classes. And so, but I agree, we have some of our faculty who are on the steering committee from small universities and colleges have said it's really critical to have colleagues to talk to about this, because yeah, you are more isolated. So yeah, it's great.
Great. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Same, I've also signed up, and I'm also very interested, and I also have to run. So thank you so much. This was great. And I'm looking forward to the next meeting on July 14th, and I will definitely be there.
Great, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.